Hi and welcome. I'm Timothy underscore Hughes, and this is Matt Jackson, Mr. Matt Jackson. What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about Pokemon. I'm not a gamer, and so I know nothing about it. And Matt he calls himself an enthusiast, but I actually think he's an expert. He's a modest Brit, so he's going to tell us all about it. So we're going to do is we're going to talk about what's behind Pokemon, why all the big hype. Matt's been playing with the game as well, so he's actually going to talk about it. And he's also going to give some hints and tips. And we're also going to talk about how businesses can actually use Pokemon maybe as a way of generating revenue or generating business. So first of all, Matt, welcome.
Thank you.
And tell us a little bit about your journey, about how you got into Pokemon, because you've been doing it for years, or you're an avid gamer.
Yeah.
And so, what is it that what does Pokemon do for you? What attracts you?
Well, Pokemon really started around the sort of '96 time.
Okay.
Which, considering the main protagonist in the storyline is a 10-year-old boy,
right,
sat me pretty much right in that sort of zone that I was that 10-year-old boy.
Okay.
And in the Pokemon world, when you're 10 years old, you're allowed to get your Poké license,
right,
and begin Pokemon training, i.e. catching and battling Pokemon,
right,
with the ultimate goal to catch them all and become the greatest trainer in the world.
right. So I from a gaming perspective, that gaming is different from gamification, because gaming is usually about where you're actually becoming a persona.
Absolutely.
So you think you are something, and you are something in the game.
Yes, absolutely. It's like a role playing game, so it's an RPG. And one
RPG being role playing game.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. And one of the best things I've seen that I don't think anyone's ever really done as well is the cartoon that came out with Pokemon.
Yeah.
Around the same time, followed through the game story, and the game and the series, certainly in the first season.
Cartoon on the TV.
Yeah, cartoon on the TV followed a similar pattern.
Right.
And what they did is, unlike other computer games, where if you generally play the computer game of a film or a series, you have to follow exactly the route and do exactly what they're doing, and basically be the person who's in the film.
In the film, yeah.
In this one, you're allowed to obviously call yourself something different,
right,
and you don't have to choose the same Pokemon as the cartoon series follows,
right,
and you can do different things or choose to focus on different areas. So you got to live in the world of the cartoon that you knew and loved,
right,
but you lived your own story.
Okay, and this is kind of from '96. That kind of wave went, and it went away, and now basically it's come back again through this game that so many people seem to be downloading and playing.
I think the thing is that I don't think the game ever went away, because there have been multiple generations throughout the years. So you started with Red and Blue, and then second generation. I think we're all the way up to like fifth or sixth generation now.
Right.
The latest one being the the new Ruby Sapphire remakes.
Okay.
But what's happened with Pokemon Go, I think, is that all the people who kind of stopped playing because they thought they were too old or whatever, this is sort of brought them all back in. So what you had is, when you were 10 years old, everyone was playing Pokemon. And I imagine that because Pokemon have continued to release games, although I haven't been a 10-year-old for a while, that all the 10-year-olds have still been playing Pokemon.
Okay.
But what this has done in a crazy volume is it's brought all the people who've almost ever played Pokemon from '96 through until 2006. So it's like,
So do you think the success is actually the fact that they already have this brand?
Absolutely.
So if there was an if Pepsi was thinking of doing something similar, it might not have the same.
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't, because Pokemon's been sort of letting kids and grown-ups live in a fantasy world since 1996.
Okay.
And there is, especially because with Pokemon Go, what they've done is released the first generation Pokemon. So like the first 150, i.e. the ones that came out in '96.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of nostalgia there.
Right.
With people like me and people who have played them the whole time.
And in terms of your gaming background, I mean, you've played lots of games. So what other things have you done?
It's varied. I mean, I oddly enough, I don't normally like RPG games.
Mhm.
Like I have played Final Fantasy and games like that, but I don't love them. And
Right.
loads of people hate me for saying that. But Pokemon, as far as an RPG, I think just because of its simplicity, and its forgiving nature, is very, very sort of easy to get along with.
Right.
Um,
And I think that I don't know about you, but if I travel a lot on the train into London,
Yeah.
and you see a lot of people playing games, and I think there's a fact that 45% of gamers are now actually female,
Yeah.
because what they actually do is that they're playing Candy Crush
yeah.
or games like that,
Mhm.
which are actually they're actually that's actually gamification
Yeah.
rather than actually you become somebody. You're throwing things
Yeah.
at people, or whatever.
I'm not sure what the gender split was on Pokemon when it started, but I know that Pokemon has always appealed to females. I know
Right.
in general maybe gaming has been weighted towards males, but because Pokemon is essentially about catching and training and loving, you do love your Pokemon when
Right.
you have the game.
So
and when
what do you do in the game then?
So your job is to become the best trainer in the world.
Right.
So you've got to decide which Pokemon you want.
Yeah.
Then you've got to train them up,
Right.
battle them against others,
Yeah.
and essentially beat everyone
Right.
that you come across.
And is that what Pokemon Go does that as well?
Pokemon Go is doing that through the gyms.
Right.
So they have started a battle system.
Right.
I'm not sure if that's going to evolve, so you can just challenge people in the street at some point.
Right.
or
And have fights
things-
with
yeah,
people in the street.
Yeah. Fights is probably the wrong word.
Yeah.
But yes, it does utilise that same thing, but in the same way as with, in fact, more so than the original Pokemon, it's not essential.
Right.
You don't have to battle anyone. You don't have to go to the gyms. You
Right.
can just happily collect and enjoy having a myriad of Pokemon in your phone that
Right.
you feel. That was what was one of the good things about Pokemon when it came out is there were so many different aspects to it.
Yeah.
Because there's obviously you've heard the phrase "got to catch them all."
Right. No.
Okay, I can't believe that, but
I am just
Alright,
so not
okay,
a gamer.
so gotta catch them all is essentially one of the tasks in
Right.
Pokemon is you are, as a Poke trainer, meant to be trying to catch and log every species of Pokemon
Right.
there are. So
Okay. So it's a bit like train spotting. You have to get all the train
absolutely,
numbers.
a little bit more interesting, but yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, train spotters. And at the same time, you've got this thing in the background where you've got to be training your Pokemon
Right.
and fighting them. And in general, most of the games portray you as the trainer who loves his Pokemon, who looks after his Pokemon,
Right.
who develops strong ties with his Pokemon,
Yeah.
and that is why you are, in general, defeating these other trainers who don't treat Pokemon well and are all about
Right.
power and
Right.
everything. And
So
it's
the
that-
tip is you've got to love your Pokemon.
obviously,
Right.
yeah. And like I said, there have been some. It sounds strange, but there have been some seriously tough times. So when you've spent so long, like the first time, one of the versions of Pokemon was Black, and the first time I played Black, I was blown away with the graphic upgrades from like the last generation and things like that, and I plugged instantly about 80 hours
Right.
of play into it without even thinking about it.
Right.
Just happened. And when I got to the end, I had this amazing team that I'd spent so long nurturing, and they were really powerful and could pretty much defeat anyone in the game. And
And are you fight? Is that so? This is totally online with
so
other people.
no, so that's a different thing altogether.
Okay,
So what you have is you have the game itself, where you go through a storyline that they
Yeah.
have decided that the game will follow.
Yeah.
But again, there are obviously different avenues with
Yeah.
that because you can choose whichever Pokemon you want.
Right.
And now, like it started at 150, but each generation brings out like 100 more.
Right.
So you're getting more and more. The choice is almost endless.
Right.
And there is then the option that came out in some of the subsequent generations that you can then go online, especially when like the DSs came out, the
Right.
Nintendo, so like the new consoles came out. You could go online. It used to be that what you'd have to do with when you got a Game Boy Advance, you had to plug in
Right.
via a wire, and you
Right.
could plug into your friend's Game Boy Advance,
Right.
and then you could have a battle.
Yeah.
And then as the subsequent consoles came out, it then became wireless and then
Right.
became global.
Yeah.
So you can literally go into, there are areas on the game where you can go into and you can fight
Right.
anyone in the
Because
world.
I was reading someone, I can't remember, it was some witchcraft or something game where he was the #1 worldwide, and they said, "How do you feel about that?" He said, "I'm the most unhappiest man in the world," and they said, "Why is that?" He said, "Well, I have to take 5 iPads into the shower with me,
Yeah.
because if for one moment I leave any of the stuff that I've built, people will come and burn it down."
Yeah, because they don't like him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably World of Warcraft, I imagine.
What that was it, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
It's not. It's a very different game, but it
Right.
does have that similar feel in that. But unlike World of Warcraft, people can't just come and wreck your stuff
Right.
without you being there.
right. So going back to the game that everyone's talking about,
Pokemon
right?
Go,
Yeah,
yeah.
Pokemon Go, which is now downloadable to it's on. Is it you're on Android, aren't you?
Sorry, yeah.
So you've played that for a couple of days.
Yeah.
I have to admit, you have actually admitted to me that you've deleted it.
And then re-downloaded it.
Oh right, okay.
And yeah, so yeah.
Okay, so tell me about how you use Pokemon Go and
Essentially, and this is something that I know we've talked about before. What the genius of what Nintendo have done is they've said.
so you showed it me, and it's basically
Yeah.
it's like a GPS with these characters layered on top of
Absolutely.
it.
So
it
you
looks
walk
really
around.
simple.
Yeah, it's so simplistic. But what they've essentially done is they've said Sword consoles, Sword having to watch it on a screen.
Yeah.
And what they've just said it's in the real world. Now we all
Right.
know that the Pokemon aren't actually out there.
Yes.
But for all intents and purposes, when you look on your phone
Yeah.
and you lift up,
Yeah, I saw on your phone. It looks like they're there.
That Pokemon is in the
Yeah.
place you are.
Yeah.
And
But as you pointed out when you showed it me, where you particularly looked at that there was a road,
yeah.
and you said the Pokemon could actually be in somebody's house.
Oh yeah, well yeah. Obviously there've been lots of not controversy, but bugs to sort of iron out. In that Nintendo didn't do a lot of checking of where large sections of private property were
Right.
or anything like that. So the Pokemon, as I imagine they would do in a real Pokemon world, can appear anywhere.
Mm.
But some people have been less than.
And it just looked really easy in terms of
Oh yeah, it is.
just walking down the street and seeing these things,
That's it.
and it says there's a Pokemon within
Yeah.
30 yards
Yeah.
or something like that, and you can go and find them.
Yeah. And that's it. And there's, like I said, because you've got the 96 people getting involved and the 10-year-olds today getting involved, you've got generation upon generation of people all doing the same thing. And what you find is if you're doing it down the street, you'll have people come up to you occasionally
Right.
and say,
So it's social in a way,
yeah,
isn't it?
absolutely,
Yeah.
no, 100%. So they will come up to you and they'll be like, oh, have you caught anything recently? Where did you catch it? Sort of
Right.
thing. If it was something
Yeah.
that they maybe don't have or they
Yeah.
want.
Right.
And then there's all sorts of other things. So there are poker stops.
Right.
So
So what's a Pokestop?
so a poker stop is a place where you can go and then you can spin
Right.
essentially the picture of that place, and it will give you a couple of items.
So so a company could buy that.
I don't know how the mechanics of that work.
Okay.
I don't know what made Nintendo decide certain things were Pokestops and certain things were not Pokestops.
Okay.
But I cannot believe that if you were a company, you couldn't.
Buy a Pokestop
Yeah.
and drive people to your place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there's other things that really help. So there's things called poker lures,
Right.
and you can put a poker lure or an incense
Right.
on a Pokestop, and it
Right.
will attract Pokemon to it.
Okay.
So what you might get on the screen when that happens, a Pokestop doesn't look like a normal Pokestop. It's got all like petals around it.
Right.
So it's luring Pokemon towards it. And absolutely, if I was, say, a small business owner
Yeah.
in an area,
Post office, newsagent.
absolutely,
You know, yeah.
and the post office down the road from me is a
Yeah.
Pokestop.
Right.
Like I said, I don't know whether that was just a random
Right.
act or whether.
Because you might go, I'll buy a can of Coke.
Yeah, but certainly, if I was one of those small businesses, why on earth wouldn't you get on have you as a Pokestop, and then because poker lures are for everybody. So if you put an incense on it, then it only attracts Pokemon for that player.
Right.
If you put a poker lure on it, then everybody benefits.
Right.
So if I was a business and I had paid for me to be a Pokestop, or knew there was a Pokestop nearby, which there most probably is because they're everywhere, I would totally put a lure on it.
Right.
Always. I would always have a lure.
Right.
Because then you would get people turning up, trying to catch Pokemon.
Yeah.
Stood right outside your business.
Right. So you could do this without actually paying any money then? If you were paying the game and you put a lure
absolutely.
on it,
No,
so it's a small business, you wouldn't even need to do it without...
no, so the lures, I think the lures are actually one of the purchasing apps.
Okay.
In-app purchases, sorry.
Right.
But
they're
not particularly expensive.
Okay, but so one of the things about the game is that, like a lot of games, it actually, what it's trying to do is drive you to buy things within the game.
I think so. You don't have to. So, what you've got is you start with, and you've got a finite amount of Pokeballs.
Right.
And a Pokeball is what you use to throw to catch a Pokemon.
Right.
And when you run out of Pokeballs, there's no more catching Pokemon.
Right.
But like I said, these Pokestops are everywhere.
Right.
And if you go to one and spin them, in general, you get 2 to 3 Pokeballs.
Right.
For doing that.
Right.
And so all you need to do is visit like 5 of these, and you're probably good for a little while.
Right.
And then when you run out again, you can visit another 5, good for a little while, etc.
Right.
Now, if you don't want to go through that hassle, you can absolutely go online, make an in-app purchase, and buy a load of Pokeballs.
Right.
The lures and things are, you do occasionally get one for leveling up.
Right.
So you go through levels, and the higher level you get, the better Pokemon generally turn up for you. But in general, I think they're more buying than just receiving by the game. But yes, I think from what I've seen though, the game has impressed me, because I thought absolutely that this was just going to be one of those games that's just driving and driving people to spend and spend and spend.
Yes.
In all honesty, compared to a lot of apps with in-app purchases, it's probably one of the best.
Okay.
So it doesn't ever really restrict you if you don't spend money.
Right.
All it does is maybe slows your progress slightly.
Right.
Or makes you have to walk further.
Okay.
Or those sorts of things.
But for the average person, you know, at the moment it's a fantastic day here in London.
Yes.
To get outside and play the game. You know, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah. So and as you say, you think it's pretty social in terms of meeting people and actually talking to people.
Don't get me wrong, you've got the people who are Pokemaniacs and the people who aren't, and you do still get some funny looks from people.
Right.
Like I was going around Bushy Park yesterday.
Right.
I went for a little wander, caught myself a licky tongue, very happy with that.
Okay.
But you do get the sort of, when you're walking like this, you get the sort of occasional, because everyone knows what you're doing.
Yeah.
Now, you know, it's such a well-known thing that everybody in the world should know what you're doing.
And it sounds also like maybe there's even a job for people to offer local businesses consultancy in terms of how to actually lure people to their places.
It sounds a bit crazy, yeah, it's a bit outlandish, but I mean, if you've got a bunch of businesses, especially like in a little retail park or something like that, and you feel you could start attracting people to that area by using Pokemon. I mean, it's been proven all over the world that if a rare Pokemon turns up, or what the game can do is you can have alerts on, and it can tell you that a rare Pokemon has appeared at blah, and they get hundreds of people turning up in America and Japan.
Okay, right.
I'm not sure what the scale is in this country in that sort of term, but I know that there was a war turtle appeared, which is just
carry on. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. I haven't got a clue.
on a pier in California somewhere.
Right.
And the picture of the pier in California is everyone just literally like peas in a pod, like they can't move on the pier because so many people went there. And I don't know whether that was a forum where someone said, "Oh my goodness, there's a war turtle on the pier," and everyone went around there.
Drove down there.
But certainly, I mean, if they're putting out alerts that there's a rare Pokemon or there's a whatever, there's absolutely every opportunity for you to try and attract people into your area.
Right. So I mean, that would be quite good if there was if you had a retail park and you had a particular rare Pokemon, you would immediately get people along to
Absolutely.
that,
And again,
and they'd obviously buy something.
yeah, and they're driven all that way.
Yeah.
Although, don't underestimate the Pokemaniac ability to
No,
drive,
well, they'll just
drive, catch the Pokemon, and just drive away.
yeah,
But absolutely, if you get enough people there, percentages would
Yeah.
say that someone's going to do something or think, oh yeah, I was going to get that, or if it's near the supermarket that they don't normally go to, they'll go to that supermarket because they're already there. But yeah, I think obviously you've got to be a bit moral about it, and there's no boy crying wolf sort of stuff. Like, don't start putting on forums. This is here, and then you get 100 people turning up, and then there's nothing there.
And then a riot,
And then don't push people.
So I mean, we've now done in 20 minutes. Is there any sort of closing comment you have, or any hints and tips, or?
Hints and tips? No. I think everyone who is into it is already reading all about the tips. A little thing that I found out the other day, I'm sure you all know about it, but apparently when you find a high level Pokemon, you can spin the Pokeball before you throw it, and it makes a curveball, and that makes it more likely to catch.
Right.
So if you didn't know that, brilliant, like you did. But I just think, for me, and I know we have discussed this, Nintendo they've just made the next step.
Right.
They've done it. Like, everyone's been talking about virtual reality and wearing these huge headsets recently.
Yeah,
like,
that was getting all the news. Yeah.
Yeah, and like,
and I remember an article only a couple of weeks before this came out when it said, come on a moment, hold on a moment, augmented reality is going to be the next big thing,
it's
not virtual reality.
Yeah, because
then all of a sudden this came out.
Yeah, that's it.
Now, I had someone say to me the other day, this isn't augmented reality, this is location-based gaming.
Rubbish. They've turned this world into a Pokemon world.
Right.
That's exactly what they've done.
Okay.
So what you can do is, just like in a Pokemon world, you can now catch wild Pokemon, and you can go to places and battle other people with Pokemon.
Yeah.
With the two goals of catching all the Pokemon that are currently available, and becoming the best trainer there is in the world.
Good. So where can people find you?
Me?
Yeah, on you're Mr.
I'm Mr. Matt Jackson
on Twitter, aren't you?
That's the one, as in MR, not
MR Matt
Jackson.
MATT Jackson on Twitter.
Yeah, that's the one, and I've just started my Instagram page.
Right, and what are you on
Mr.
Instagram?
Matt Jackson.
Mr. Matt Jackson on Instagram. Good.
Yeah.
Great, fantastic. Thanks, Matt.
So
pleasure. I'm Tim Hughes, Timothy Hughes, Timothy_Hughes on Twitter.
Yeah.
Or you can find me on Instagram. I'm Tim_Hughes1. Nice. Which is nice, doesn't work. Or you can find me on LinkedIn. So thank you very much. Thanks for watching.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for